What if the one person you trusted most orchestrated your downfall as a cruel joke, only for you to rise from the ashes and turn their world to dust? That's where my story begins, a tale of betrayal so deep it reshaped my soul, and a revenge so calculated it left no trace of the man I used to be. Have you ever had a moment where your entire life flips upside down? Not the kind you see coming, like a storm on the horizon, but the kind that crashes into you like a tidal wave, leaving you gasping, wondering if the universe is playing a vicious prank. That was me, blindsided in a way I never could have imagined. It was supposed to be just another night in Seattle. I'd spent the day drowning in legal briefs, my eyes burning from hours of poring over documents for a case that could define my career. For the past 3 years, I'd been grinding my way up the corporate law firm ladder in Bellevue, and this case was my golden ticket, the kind that could launch me into a future I'd only dreamed of. My wife, Sarah, had sent a few texts about a girls' night out, but I was too buried in work to reply. Not because I didn't care, but because my brain was fried. When I finally glanced at the clock, it was well past midnight. I let out a weary sigh, grabbed my keys, and headed home to our quiet suburban house. The moment I pulled into the driveway, something felt wrong. The house was too still, the kind of silence that makes the hairs on your neck stand up. Sarah wasn't one to cut her nights short, but this was different, a quiet that screamed trouble. Then came the flashing lights, red and blue slicing through the darkness like knives. At first, I thought there'd been an accident nearby, but then I saw them. 4 cops blocking my driveway. Michael Carter, one of them Barker as I stepped out of my car. I frowned, confused. Yeah? Turn around, hands where we can see them. I let out a nervous chuckle, thinking this had to be a mistake. I'm a lawyer, for heaven's sake. I know my rights. What's going on? No answer. Another officer moved in, yanking my hands behind my back. Cold metal snapped around my wrists. Real handcuffs. Panic surged. What the hell is this? I demanded, my voice rising. They patted me down, shoving me forward. Michael Carter, you're under arrest for fraud and identity theft. You have the right to remain silent. Fraud? Identity theft? I let out a disbelieving laugh. You've got the wrong guy. I'm a corporate attorney. This is insane. That's when I heard it. Laughter, not from the cops, but from her. I turned my head and saw Sarah on the porch with her friends, wine glasses in hand, cackling like they were watching a comedy special. Oh my gosh, Michael, your face! Sarah howled, doubling over. This is priceless. I froze, my breath catching. Sarah, what is this? She wiped tears from her eyes, still giggling. It's just a prank, babe. Relax. Her friend Emily, her oldest confidant, smirked. You're a lawyer, right? Let's see you talk your way out of this. The cops weren't in on it. Their faces were stone-cold serious, one reading my rights, another holding a warrant. My mind spun. Sarah, I said, my voice low and sharp, tell them it's a joke. Now. She waved a hand dismissively. Chill, Michael. I'll clear it up in the morning. You'll be home by breakfast. She didn't get it. This wasn't some harmless gag with a jump scare and a laugh track. She'd fed the police fake evidence, enough to slap me with felony charges. These weren't actors. They were real cops doing their job. My heart pounded as they shoved me into the squad car. I looked at Sarah one last time through the window, still laughing, oblivious to the fact that she'd just shattered her own life. You know that moment when time slows and reality hits so hard your mind can't keep up? That was me, handcuffed in the back of that police car, the red and blue lights streaking across the night. Sarah thought it was hilarious. The cops didn't. They treated me like any other suspect. As we pulled away, I locked eyes with her, willing her to see the weight of what she'd done. She didn't. That was the last time she ever saw me. Jail isn't like the movies. There's no dramatic scene where you proclaim your innocence and the officers suddenly apologize. It's a slow, humiliating grind. I was fingerprinted, photographed, and tossed into a holding cell with men who'd actually earned their place there. A drunk muttering to himself in the corner. A guy with a bloody lip pacing like a caged wolf. Another covered in tattoos, sizing me up like prey. I sat still, staring ahead, my mind racing. Sarah would fix this, right? Once she sobered up, she'd march to the station and explain it was a prank. Hours dragged by. Nothing. No one came. I got my one phone call and dialed her. It rang and rang, voicemail. I tried again. Nothing. She'd left me there. That's when I stopped waiting for her to save me. That's when I stopped trusting her. When my lawyer Tom arrived, I'd already made up my mind. He was livid, his face twisted with disbelief. Michael, tell me this is a joke. I gave a bitter chuckle. Funny, right? That's what it was supposed to be. He rubbed his face. Your wife and her friends gave the police fake statements, forged bank records, fraudulent emails in your name. My jaw clenched. She'd gone that far. Will she face charges? I asked, my voice tight. Tom sighed. If you press charges, yeah, but Michael, do you really want to go there? This'll blow over once she comes to her senses. You two can talk it out. Talk it out? Like this was some petty spat over dinner? No. Sarah had broken something in me. My trust, my marriage, my life. And I was going to make sure she felt the same. The moment I was released, I didn't call Sarah. I called a private investigator. You want to disappear? They asked, calm and professional. Yes, I said without hesitation, completely. They didn't ask questions. Within 24 hours, my bank accounts were emptied, my social media erased, my name scrubbed from every non-essential database. I resigned from the firm with a cold, impersonal email, no explanation, no goodbyes. Then I bought a one-way ticket out of Seattle. Sarah didn't realize I was gone for days. I could imagine it, her waking up, hungover, expecting me to storm in, ready for a fight. Instead, silence. No calls, no texts, just nothing. At first, she probably thought I was sulking, but then she started looking. My firm, my friends, my family, all dead ends. The panic must have set in when she realized I was truly gone, no trace left behind. For the first time in years, I felt free. No toxic marriage, no soul-crushing job, no fake friends. Just me, starting fresh. I left Michael Carter behind and became someone new. Sarah would search for years, begging, crying, swearing she was sorry. But by the time she found me again, I'd be sitting on a judge's bench in Denver, and she'd be the one facing judgment. Have you ever wondered what it feels like to vanish from someone's life? To wake up one morning and find that the person you thought was a permanent fixture is just gone? Sarah never thought it could happen to her. She thought I'd always come back, that I'd forgive her, that Michael Carter would always be her husband. She was wrong. When that plain white envelope arrived at her doorstep, no return address, no warning, she knew she'd lost me for good. That first year, Sarah hunted for me. She called my old firm, my family, my friends. She tried tracking my accounts, thinking I was hiding nearby. But I was a ghost. At first, she probably told herself I'd cool off, that I just needed time. But as weeks turned to months, the excuses faded. The panic grew. She didn't just lose her husband. She lost her safety net. The fancy house in Bellevue? Foreclosed. Her lavish lifestyle? Gone. Her friends, the ones who laughed at my expense? They vanished when she had nothing left to offer. Then came the shame. She'd been so sure I'd crawl back that I'd forgive her, that I'd sit down and talk it out like some spineless man who didn't know he was being played. Instead, I'd disappeared so completely, I became a myth. By the time that envelope arrived at her cramped Tacoma apartment, Sarah was a shadow of herself. No doorman, no luxury, just a tiny space with peeling paint and a view of an alley. Her hands trembled as she picked it up, the weight of it heavy with finality. She knew it was from me, and she knew it wasn't good. Inside, no letter, no apology, just a divorce decree, finalized, signed, Michael Carter. She read it once, twice, 3 times, her breath coming faster, the walls closing in. This wasn't possible. Divorces took months, years, paperwork, hearings, mediation. But this was done, settled without her knowledge. I'd made sure of that. Sarah always thought she was in control, that she could toy with lives and fix the mess later. But that paper shattered her. The man she'd mocked, humiliated, betrayed, he'd walked away first, and she couldn't handle it. That night, she sat alone on her couch, staring at the decree, and for the first time in years, she cried. Not the manipulative tears she used to get her way, but real ones, raw and broken. She'd lost control, and worse, she'd lost to me. Sarah tried to fight it. She went to every courthouse in Tacoma, desperate to understand how the divorce had been processed without her. She called every lawyer she knew, begging to challenge it. But my tracks were covered. The law firm that handled it was discreet, untouchable. My legal name was changed, my accounts wiped clean. I didn't just divorce Sarah, I erased myself from her world. That night, she returned to her apartment, exhausted, defeated, and cried again, the weight of her loss sinking in. Sarah's life unraveled slowly, like a bridge collapsing one beam at a time. She'd always been the queen of her social circle, surrounded by people who fawned over her. But those friends? They were mine, built through my business dinners, my charity events, my connections. When I vanished, so did the invitations. At first she tried to keep up appearances, showing up to gatherings with forced smiles, laughing at jokes that fell flat. But the whispers started. People looked at her differently, some with pity, others with amusement. Everyone knew her husband had walked out, leaving her with nothing. In her world, weakness was social suicide. One by one, her so-called friends drifted away. Unanswered texts, ignored calls, until Sarah was no longer welcome anywhere. Then came the money, or rather, the lack of it. Sarah loved spending, designer clothes, luxury vacations, overpriced wine. She thought it would never end. But wealth doesn't last when you don't earn it. She'd never worked a day in her life, and I'd made sure she had no access to my money. Joint accounts? Emptied. Credit cards? Canceled. The house? Tied to a mortgage she couldn't pay. At first, she spent like nothing had changed, convinced I'd return. But when the bills piled up, when the landlord called, when she couldn't afford her weekly spa visits, reality hit like a freight train. Sarah had no idea how to survive without me. The house was the final blow. She fought to keep it, clinging to the life she'd flaunted at parties. But no money meant no house. She downsized to a small condo in a decent neighborhood, trying to maintain some illusion of class. It didn't last. Sarah had never learned to budget, to work, to stand on her own. When the money ran out, she moved again, this time to a tiny Tacoma apartment with peeling paint and neighbors who didn't care about her past. Then came the job. Sarah, working? The idea was almost laughable. She'd spent years looking down on people with 9-to-5 jobs, mocking the idea of a regular paycheck. But now she needed one. Her first gig was at a boutique clothing store, folding shirts and restocking shelves. She hated it. Customers treated her like nobody. Her boss ignored her sob stories. She wasn't Sarah Carter, glamorous wife of a lawyer. She was just another employee, and she was terrible at it. Showing up late, ignoring instructions, acting like she was above it all, she was fired within months. The pattern repeated. Job after job, she couldn't hold on to anything. She wasn't built for that life, but it was all she had left. The loneliness was the worst. Sarah had always been surrounded by people, even when she wasn't happy. Now she was alone. Her old friends were gone, and the new circles she tried to join rejected her. Nobody wanted to be around a fallen queen. At first, she tried to distract herself with meaningless dates, hoping some rich man would rescue her. But they saw her desperation. She wasn't a prize anymore, just a cautionary tale. As the years passed, Sarah stopped trying. She stopped checking her phone, stopped looking at old photos, stopped hoping. She had nothing, and for the first time, she understood what it felt like to be discarded. But then came the invitation. Sarah had spent years drowning in failure, barely scraping by. One night, in her tiny apartment, a golden envelope arrived. Elegant, expensive, out of place in her world. She frowned, flipping it over, and her heart stopped. The name on it, Judge Michael Carter. She thought she'd hit rock bottom, that her punishment was over. She was wrong. This wasn't an olive branch. It was a trap, and she was about to walk right into it. I wondered how long it would take for Sarah to break completely. 3 years? 5? A decade? She crumbled faster than I expected. She thought she'd lost everything. Her money, her friends, her dignity. She was wrong. There was more to lose. That golden envelope arrived on a cold winter night, and Sarah, living in survival mode, almost tossed it out. It was too nice, too out of place for her life. But curiosity won. When she saw my name, Judge Michael Carter, her blood ran cold. She'd spent years searching for me, desperate to know what happened. Now I'd found her. The invitation was to a gala, a high-profile legal event in Portland, filled with the kind of people Sarah used to charm. She almost didn't go, but the need for closure drove her. She scraped together her last bit of pride, bought a second-hand designer dress, and walked into that event like she still belonged. She had no idea what was coming. I was watching her when she arrived. She looked different, not just older, but smaller, like the life had been drained from her. The woman who once radiated arrogance now moved like a ghost, afraid of her own shadow. Good. She deserved to feel that emptiness. Our eyes met, and for a moment I saw a flicker of shock, regret, maybe even hope in her face. She didn't know this night wasn't about reconciliation. It was her final reckoning. Sarah lingered, pretending to mingle, but I could feel her eyes on me. I let her wait, let her stew. Then, as the gala hit its peak, the host took the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we honor one of the brightest legal minds of our generation, a man who's redefined justice and overcome unimaginable betrayal. Please welcome Judge Michael Carter. The applause was thunderous. Sarah froze. Unimaginable betrayal wasn't a coincidence. It was a warning. I took the stage, adjusted the microphone, and let my gaze linger on her. I wasn't always a judge, I began, my voice calm but deliberate. Once I was a fool who believed in love, who trusted the wrong person. And one night that person betrayed me in the worst way, humiliated me, set me up, laughed as I was taken away in handcuffs. The crowd leaned in, hungry for the drama. Sarah's face drained of color. But in the end, I said, a slow smile spreading, they lost. The silence was suffocating. Sarah staggered back, realizing everyone in that room knew her shame. Even if they didn't know her name, she was irrelevant, just another face in the crowd, and I had won. She didn't leave right away. She waited, hovering, hoping for a chance to speak. When the night was nearly over, I gave her what she wanted, a moment alone. She reached for my hand, like I was still the man she'd married. "Michael," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I don't even know what to say." I raised an eyebrow. "You don't?" She swallowed hard. "I was stupid. I was selfish. I never meant for it to go that far. You have to believe me." I let out a quiet chuckle. "Believe you?" I echoed. "Why?" She flinched. I stepped closer, watching her breath quicken. "I gave you a life most people dream of," I murmured, "and you destroyed it. You laughed while you did it, and you thought I'd come back." Tears welled in her eyes. "I thought you'd forgive me," she admitted, her voice breaking. I leaned in, watching her tremble, and whispered, "Sarah, I don't forgive you." I saw the moment her last shred of hope vanished. I wasn't angry anymore. I was done. That was worse than any revenge she'd imagined. I turned away without another word, leaving her speechless, broken, alone. I thought watching Sarah crumble would be enough. I thought seeing her regret, hearing her beg, would satisfy me. But it didn't. Because she wasn't the only one who'd betrayed me. Her friends, Emily, Lauren, and Claire, the women who'd plotted with her, who'd laughed as I was shoved into that police car, they weren't innocent. They were accomplices, and now they were next. The best revenge isn't loud or messy. It's slow, strategic, like dismantling a house brick by brick. For months I watched them from afar, learning what they valued, what they couldn't bear to lose. Then I took it. Emily was the ringleader, Sarah's closest friend, now a corporate executive in a shiny Seattle high-rise. She thrived on power, built her career on secrets. So I exposed them, one scandal at a time. A leaked financial irregularity here, a whispered fraudulent deal there. Her reputation cracked, then shattered. One day, she walked into her boardroom to find her colleagues staring coldly. Voted out, her empire gone. The best part? She never knew who did it. Lauren was the socialite, the influencer with a picture-perfect life. Lavish vacations, a doting fiancé, a curated image that made others jealous. But illusions are fragile. I found her weak spot, her fiancé, a wealthy man who adored her, unaware she was cheating with his best friend. I didn't tell him. I made sure he walked in on them. A well-timed call, a perfectly orchestrated moment, and her life collapsed. Her fiancé left, her sponsors dropped her, her followers turned on her. She became what she feared most, irrelevant. Claire was different. Not powerful like Emily or famous like Lauren, just comfortable. A small-town girl who'd married well, with a husband, kids, stability. That's what I took. She'd buried a secret. A child she'd given up for adoption, pretending it never happened. I found him, now grown, searching for answers. I gave him the truth and sent him to her doorstep. When her husband learned she'd lied, their marriage fell apart. Claire lost everything, and I never had to lift a finger. I didn't take credit. I left them one thing. An anonymous message, 3 words. Talk your way out. The same words they'd mocked me with that night. When they read it, they knew it wasn't karma. It was me. That was their true punishment. Knowing why their lives were ruined and being powerless to stop it. Sarah thought it was over. She thought losing her friends, her money, her dignity was the price she'd paid. She was wrong. True punishment isn't just about loss. It's about making someone feel it forever. It started with a job offer. Sarah had been scraping by for years, bouncing between dead-end jobs. When an offer landed in her inbox for an executive assistant role at a prestigious Portland law firm, she jumped at it, desperate for a lifeline. She didn't know it was a noose. On her first day, she showed up early, dressed to impress, trying to reclaim the woman she'd been. She was ushered into a conference room with the senior partners. Then the doors opened and I walked in. Her boss, her judge, her executioner. The look on her face, pure shock, fear, realization, was unforgettable. She opened her mouth, probably to stammer an excuse, but I didn't let her. I smiled and said, "Welcome aboard." I made her life hell, but not in obvious ways. It was subtle, relentless. Impossible tasks, last-minute redos, meetings at 5 in the morning when she had to take the bus. I ignored her in public but made sure she felt my eyes on her. I never raised my voice, never insulted her, but every day I chipped away at her pride until there was nothing left. It took 6 months. 6 months of Sarah swallowing her dignity, walking into the office with her head down, avoiding my gaze. 6 months of pretending she could take it. Then, one evening, when the office was nearly empty, she knocked on my door. I let her in. She stood there, wringing her hands, barely holding herself together. "Please," she whispered. I leaned back in my chair. "Please what?" Her throat bobbed. "I need you to stop." I raised an eyebrow. "Stop what?" She blinked, eyes glassy. "You know what?" I stared, waiting for her to say it. Sarah had always thought she was untouchable, the victim in her own story. But now she knew the truth. She wasn't being punished because I was cruel. She deserved it. Finally, she broke. Tears slid down her cheeks as she whispered, "I'm sorry." I tilted my head. "For what?" "For what I did to you," she said, her voice cracking. "For that night, for setting you up, for everything." I let the silence stretch, then stood, walked over, and leaned down so we were eye to eye. "Not good enough," I whispered. Sarah left my office shattered, but one last punishment awaited. 2 weeks later, she found a letter on her desk, her termination notice, no explanation, no warning, just like she'd done to me. Now she was truly, completely alone. I thought I'd won. For years I'd pictured this. Sarah broken, discarded. I'd spent years orchestrating her downfall, and when I walked away, I expected satisfaction. Instead, I felt empty. There was one last choice to make. Let her fade into nothing or do something I never thought I would. A mutual acquaintance mentioned her one day. "She's not doing well," they said. "I heard she's homeless." I laughed at first. Sarah Carter, queen of high society, on the streets? But then I looked for her. On a rainy Portland night, I found her in an alley, sitting on a bench, a tattered coat wrapped around her. Her once perfect hair was matted, her skin pale and sickly. When she saw me, she flinched, expecting more pain. I didn't speak at first, just watched. For the first time, I didn't feel rage or vengeance, just exhaustion. Then she whispered, "You won." Her voice was rough, empty. "You destroyed me, and I deserved it." She laughed, a hollow sound. "But what now, Michael? What do you do when the person you wanted to punish is already dead inside?" I didn't answer. That night I lay awake thinking about her betrayal, my revenge. Was this what I wanted? A woman with nothing, not even worth hating? I realized I had a choice. The next morning, I found her on that same bench. She looked at me, eyes dull, braced for more. "You don't have to do this," she muttered. "If you're here to gloat, just get it over with." I shook my head. "I'm not here to gloat." She frowned, confused. I asked, "What do you want, Sarah?" She blinked. "What?" "What do you want?" I repeated. She laughed dryly. "What does it matter? I don't get to have things anymore." I didn't let her dodge it. "Answer the question." She hesitated, then whispered, "I just want to stop hurting." I exhaled, staring at the rain-soaked pavement. Then I made my choice. I pulled an envelope from my coat and placed it beside her. She eyed it warily. "What is this?" "A choice," I said. Her trembling fingers opened it. Inside was a one-way plane ticket and a check, enough to start over. She stared, her breathing unsteady. "Why?" she whispered. She expected cruelty, not mercy. I stood, hands in my pockets. "You don't deserve forgiveness," I said. She flinched. "But I deserve peace." Her eyes widened, a flicker of hope, not for us, but for a new life. She didn't speak as I walked away. I didn't need her to. I wasn't taking anything from her this time. I was giving her a chance. What she did with it was up to her. Sarah had one final shot to become someone new. As for me, it was time to move forward. I never looked back. Not when I left that day, not when I boarded a flight out of Portland, not when I heard whispers months later that Sarah had vanished. Some said she'd taken the money and left the country. Others said she never cashed the check, just disappeared. I didn't care. For the first time, Sarah Carter wasn't my problem anymore. Starting over wasn't easy. I'd spent years consumed by revenge, every move calculated to bring Sarah down. But now she was gone, and I had to face a question I hadn't asked since that night. Who was I without vengeance? The answer didn't come quickly. I threw myself into work, building a reputation as a formidable judge in Denver. I told myself power was enough, but revenge leaves a void, and when it's gone, you're left wondering what's next. One quiet afternoon, an unmarked envelope arrived on my desk. I thought it was a case file, but inside was a handwritten note, 6 words. I made my decision. Thank you. No signature, no address, but I knew it was Sarah. She'd made her choice. Did she take the money? I never checked. I didn't need to know if she'd started over or burned it in some act of defiance. All that mattered was that she was gone, and I was lighter. Not because I'd won, but because I'd let go. People think revenge brings closure, that tearing someone down will make you whole, but it's a prison. Holding that letter, I realized I'd wasted years hating a ghost. The Sarah I'd loved was gone long before I started my revenge. I'd been chasing shadows. Now, for the first time in years, I was free. Thank you for listening. Please share your thoughts, like this video if you found it helpful, and subscribe for more.